In the dim pre-dawn light outside an old market alley in the outskirts of London, the horizon is tinged with a faint red as the sun prepares to rise. In this muted light, an elderly man can be seen meticulously sweeping the ground. He is John Smith, a man in his early 70s. With a slightly bent back, John might appear to be just another elderly man collecting cardboard to make ends meet. But if you look closely, there's something different in his movements. His steps are slow but precise, and his hands move with a surprising dexterity for his age. The way he handles the broom feels like a skill honed over many years. As the market vendors begin to open their shops one by one, a few nod in John's direction in greeting, though most keep a subtle distance. It's as if they acknowledge his presence but are reluctant to get too close. "That old chap is always out here early cleaning, isn't he?" "Yeah, but there's something about him that keeps me from getting too close." Still, the alley remains clean, which is appreciated. The merchants exchange glances filled with a mixture of wariness and pity. To most, he is just an unfortunate old man, collecting cardboard to survive. But if one were to look closely, there are signs that John is not as ordinary as he seems. On the side of his worn-out cardboard cart is a torn military sticker. The letters have faded from rain and sun, yet the distinctive military mark remains recognizable. More intriguing is John's wrist. Faintly visible under his long sleeves are traces of tattoos, intentionally faded. After finishing his cleaning, John sits at a small table in a corner of the market and sips a warm coffee from a paper cup, a small kindness offered by one of the vendors each morning. As he drinks, he opens a worn leather notebook. On the first page, in neat handwriting, it reads, "I am not a legend. Someone just has to stay alive." He gazes at these words for a moment, takes a deep breath, and a complex emotion flickers in his eyes. Is it regret? Resignation? Or perhaps a sense of peace beyond all that? Only he knows. After a while, John tucks the notebook back into his pocket and tosses the empty coffee cup into a nearby bin with a precision that even younger men might struggle to match. He then resumes his task, pulling his cart through the market alley at a slow pace. A new day has begun. By 11 a.m., the market is bustling with life. The vendors' calls and the footsteps of customers fill the alley. Amidst this vibrant scene, the atmosphere suddenly shifts. At the entrance of the market, a group of unfamiliar young men dressed in black appear. There are 5 of them, all in black slim-fit suits, wearing the same style of sunglasses. At a glance, they might pass for company employees in formal attire, but their movements and the way they scan their surroundings set them apart from ordinary office workers. The tattoos faintly visible on their wrists and necks add to the suspicion about their identity. Who are those guys? New traders in the market? No way, with those outfits and that vibe, they don't seem like traders. Murmurs ripple through the vendors, some unable to hide their unease. Their instincts prove correct. The young men in black slowly make their way through the market, visiting each shop in turn. "Hello, sir. Nice to meet you." The first young man greets politely in front of a fruit stall, but there is an underlying menace to his politeness that anyone can sense. "We are part of a voluntary business protection association to help develop this area. From now on, we'll manage this precinct. Just pay a modest protection fee every month, and you can run your business safely." The fruit stall owner's face turns pale at the young man's words. As if he's encountered this situation before, he hesitantly opens a drawer to take out cash. That's when a middle-aged man from the neighboring shop shouts angrily, "What are you talking about? Why should we pay you? I've been running my business here for decades, and now you just show up and pull this?" The young men's expressions turn cold. One of them slowly approaches and sweeps his hand over the fruit display, causing the carefully stacked apples to tumble to the ground. The sight of red apples scattered across the floor resembles blood flowing. "Sir, the world has changed a lot. It's a time where wise choices are more important than guts." The vendor trembles with a mix of anger and fear. He clenches his fists, but refrains from further resistance. The other vendors just bow their heads, observing the situation in silence. Watching all this from a distance, John pauses his cardboard collecting and observes the situation keenly. His gaze is no longer that of a tired old man. It's sharp, like the eyes of a hawk, accurately assessing the scene. Yet he soon resumes collecting cardboard, as if nothing has happened, and moves on. "Hey, what's with the old man? Why is he staring at us?" one of the young men asks, pointing at John. "Ah, he's just a crazy old geezer. He's here every day collecting cardboard. Ignore him and keep working." They dismiss John as unimportant and move on to the next shop. However, on John's cart, quietly placed, is a card that reads, "Business Protection Association," the very same card the young men had just dropped. The next morning, as usual, John arrives early at the market. But the atmosphere is different from the day before. Faces of fear and anxiety are evident among the vendors, and some shops haven't even opened. Despite this, John starts cleaning silently while keenly observing his surroundings. As noon approaches, the young men in black return, walking more confidently as if they own the market. The vendors lower their heads or avert their gaze upon seeing them. It seems everyone now knows who these men are. "The vibe is better today. Everyone seems to understand the situation quickly," remarks the apparent leader of the young men, a man in his early 30s with a smug smile. His tone is polite, but his eyes are cold and calculated. He scans the area and notices John collecting cardboard. "Hey, old man, what are you doing here?" John slowly looks up at him but says nothing and resumes collecting. "When someone asks, you should answer. Can't you hear, or is your mind not right?" The young man's words elicit small laughs from those around, yet John remains silent. Annoyed, the young man approaches John. "You need to pay too if you want to keep cleaning here. This market is our territory now." John stands up slowly, looking at the young man without any fear. Instead, his gaze seems to be assessing and analyzing the young man. "I'm just cleaning," John replies curtly. The young man's face reddens with indignation, feeling his pride wounded. "What? This old geezer!" Suddenly, one of the young men kicks John's cart, and the gathered cardboard scatters across the ground. John watches without a word. Something stirs deep within his eyes, but his expression remains calm. "Old man, you shouldn't be doing this. You can't make any money and it's dangerous," another young man says, picking up a water bottle and throwing it at John. The bottle hits John's chest and falls to the ground, spilling water and soaking his vest. "Aren't you ashamed to be doing this at your age? Go home and rest. This place isn't for someone like you anymore." Despite their insulting words and actions, John just shakes off his wet vest and quietly begins to gather the scattered cardboard again. The surrounding vendors watch with sympathetic expressions. "Aren't you being too harsh, Ray? Even on an old man like that?" "Shh, we don't want to attract their anger to us." The vendors are angry inside but don't dare to take action, as their livelihoods are at stake. John seems to sense their thoughts and shakes his head slightly, smiling as if to say, "It's all right." But the gang members interpret John's demeanor as a slight, making them increasingly angry. Their eyes grow dangerously intense. Just as John is about to pick up the last piece of cardboard and place it back in the cart, the leader of the young men suddenly steps forward and grabs John by the collar. His grip is firm, and his eyes are filled with cold anger. "Old man, can't you hear? This is our territory now. You can't even pick up a piece of cardboard without our permission." John offers no resistance, merely meeting the young man's gaze steadily. His calmness only seems to infuriate the young man more. The young man shoves John forcefully, causing him to stumble backward and hit the awning of a nearby shop. At that moment, everything falls silent. The vendors, the gang members, even the passing customers hold their breath. John's eyes have changed. His once hunched back straightens like an iron rod. An aura of authority emanates from him that one could never expect from an old man. His gaze is no longer that of a helpless elder. It's focused, like a hawk or a serpent eyeing its prey. The young men hesitate instinctively, sensing something is amiss, a primal fear crawling up their spines. But the situation can't be undone. Their pride is on the line. What's wrong? Scared? What can this old man do? The leader sneers at his subordinates. It's pathetic. People like him always bluff but never do anything. John remains silent, but his stance subtly shifts. His center of gravity lowers, and his hands move slightly forward. The movement is so natural, like a fish adjusting its posture in water, yet it's a combat-ready stance. The vendors sense this change and start retreating further back. Some recall the special forces instructors they encountered during their military service long ago. The calm yet intense energy from John is something ordinary people could never possess. All right, old man, I'll ask you one last time. Are you going to leave this area or pay the protection fee? The young man demands. John slowly opens his mouth. Young man, it's not too late to leave now. His voice is low and calm, but there's a steel-like firmness in it. The young men laugh at his words, but there's a faint tremor in their laughter. What? Is this old man warning us? That's hilarious. He must be losing his mind. Old man, if you're so brave, why don't we take you on? It's 5 of us against you. John shakes his head slowly. In his eyes, there's a strange emotion of pity, as if he already knows what's about to happen, or is resigned to an inevitable fate. A tense silence hangs over the entire market. It's a moment frozen in time. Not a breath of wind, not a bird's song. Everyone holds their breath, anticipating what will happen next. The explosion of action is imminent. Unable to contain himself, the biggest young man throws the first punch. His fist flies toward John's face like a cannonball, but it never reaches its target. In a fluid motion, John sidesteps, and his elbow strikes the young man's solar plexus with pinpoint accuracy. The young man gasped, as if the air had been knocked out of him, falling to his knees on the ground. Ugh! Another young man, shocked by this scene, attempted to attack from behind. However, William, as if he had eyes in the back of his head, turned at just the right moment and grabbed the young man's wrist. There was a swift twist, and the sound of the young man's wrist being bent. William pinned the young man's arm and pressed him to the ground. Ah! The young man's scream echoed through the market. The remaining 3 young men froze in shock for a moment before rushing at William in anger. One of them picked up a metal pipe from nearby. How dare you touch our brother? The young man with the metal pipe swung it down towards William's head with a terrifying force. At that moment, William was holding nothing more than a simple cleaning rag. An ordinary person wouldn't have thought to block a metal pipe with such a thing. But William struck the pipe with the rag, deflecting it precisely, and used the momentum to land a strong blow on the young man's jaw. The young man lost consciousness and collapsed to the ground. The other 2 also attacked William with punches and kicks, but the results were similar. One was knocked down by a precise chop to the neck, while the other stumbled and fell after being hit in the forehead by a water bottle William threw. All of this happened in just 3 seconds. In the blink of an eye, all 5 gang members were sprawled on the ground. The market fell into complete silence. The vendors watched the scene with their mouths agape. William slowly looked around. His breathing was still calm, and not a drop of sweat was on his face. It was as if this fight had been nothing out of the ordinary for him. Fighting isn't about throwing punches. Only those who know who they're protecting will win, William said quietly. Then he slowly took off his wet vest. At that moment, the people around him gasped. On William's arms and shoulders were faint but unmistakable tattoos. They were the distinctive markings of Special Forces operatives. Though faded with time and attempted erasure, those who knew what they signified could still recognize them. The leader of the fallen young men managed to regain consciousness and looked up at William. In his eyes, a mix of fear and realization flickered. Could it be? William didn't answer him. He tossed his wet vest into the recycling cart and resumed picking up paper as if nothing had happened. But now, everyone in the market understood. He wasn't just an ordinary old man, and they knew who was standing before them. The fallen young men began to rise with fear and confusion in their eyes. Just moments ago, they had been the new rulers of this market, but now They had become defeated figures sprawled on the ground. "Damn it!" the leader muttered, wiping the blood from his mouth with the back of his hand. His eyes lingered on the tattoo on William's back, as if it reminded him of something. He pulled out his phone and secretly took a picture of William's tattoo. His hands were trembling. The market vendors continued to watch the scene in shock, unable to shake off what had just happened. No one dared to speak first or intervene. It was as if time had stopped, and they could only watch. William quietly pulled his recycling cart and began to leave the area. His steps were still those of an old man sweeping the ground, but now they looked different in people's eyes. They were the steps of a seasoned warrior, merely coated with decades of life. As soon as William left the market, the leader gathered his comrades and hurriedly fled the scene. They headed towards a parking lot far from the market. The leader's face was pale, and his hands were still trembling. "Are you okay, boss?" "Shut up. I need to make a call." With trembling hands, he dialed a number. After 3 rings, someone on the other end picked up. "Sir, it's a big problem." The young man's voice was filled with fear. A man's voice came through the phone. "What's the matter? Have you taken over the market?" "No, sir, we met an old man at the market." The young man paused and checked the photo stored on his phone. The tattoo on William's arm and shoulder was unmistakable. "Sir, I think the tattoo matches the one you mentioned." There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. Then came the sound of heavy breathing. "What? Describe the tattoo exactly." "There's an eagle emblem on the left shoulder, with some small writing underneath. I couldn't read it exactly." Another silence followed, longer this time. "Send me your location. I'm coming right away." The call ended. The young man looked at his comrades with terror in his eyes. "The boss is coming himself." The news made the other young men tense up. Their leader getting personally involved meant the situation was extremely serious. Meanwhile, rumors about what had just happened were spreading quickly among the market vendors. By evening, the market began to close, with everyone feeling uneasy about the day's events. They feared retribution from the gangsters, but were also filled with curiosity about the mysterious old man named William. William, as usual, parked his recycling cart in front of a small storage area in the corner of the market and finished his day's work. His face showed no signs of emotional change, as if the day's events were just another part of his routine. It was then that 3 black luxury sedans stopped side by side at the market entrance. From the cars emerged men in black suits, and among them was a charismatic, middle-aged man who appeared to be in his mid-50s. Unlike the others, he was casually dressed, which only highlighted his presence even more. "Who are those people coming here?" "I don't know, but they don't look ordinary." The murmurs of the vendors could be heard. The middle-aged man and his subordinates headed straight for William. William noticed their approach but showed no special reaction, just continuing to finish his work. The middle-aged man stopped in front of William. The entire market held its breath. Everyone was watching this encounter. "Mr. William," said the middle-aged man, surprising many with the words that came out of his mouth. His voice carried deep respect. "You're alive. I'm truly sorry." And then, something unexpected happened. The middle-aged man slowly knelt before William and bowed his head. His subordinates all followed suit, kneeling as well. The market people watched in even greater shock. The boss they feared so much was kneeling before an old man. William looked at them for a moment, and then slowly began to speak. "James, I didn't expect to see you here." At William's words, the middle-aged man, James, bowed his head even further. "If I had known you were alive, this never would have happened. I'm truly sorry." William sighed deeply. "Stand up. I'm not that person anymore." "But to us, you will always be the commander, sir." James looked at William with earnest eyes. His expression was filled with respect and deep regret. "From today, this area is under protection. No one will touch it," James declared firmly. Turning to his subordinates, he instructed them, "Apologize to every vendor in this market and compensate for all the damage today. And don't ever touch this area again." His subordinates nodded and accepted the order. James looked back at William. "If there's anything we can do to help, please let us know." William slowly shook his head. "No need. I just want to live quietly." James bowed deeply and stepped back. He and his subordinates soon left the market in their cars. After they left, the market remained engulfed in silence. Now everyone could guess what kind of person William was. The next morning, before the sun rose, the market was calm, unlike the day before. The cold morning air lingered through the alleys, and the previous day's events felt like a dream. Then, the familiar sound of wheels could be heard. William arrived at the market, pulling his recycling cart as usual. Acting as if nothing had happened, he continued to sweep the ground slowly. The market vendors opened their shops earlier than usual. They gave William awkward smiles as they saw him. Yesterday's events had transformed someone they had seen as just a poor old man into a legendary figure, and the situation felt strange to them. "Mr. William, you're out here again today?" the fruit vendor cautiously spoke. William nodded calmly. "Yes, cleaning is a daily task." His answer was so ordinary, the vendors were even more confused by William's behavior, as if nothing had happened yesterday. "Thank you so much for yesterday. You saved our market," the owner of the mini-mart said sincerely. William paused for a moment, looking at her. His gaze was warm, but carried a hint of sadness. "I was just where I needed to be," he replied, his words short but full of meaning. The vendors didn't ask any more questions. They sensed that William didn't want to talk about his past or identity. As time passed, the market became lively again. Customers who were unaware of yesterday's events came to shop as usual, and the vendors gradually returned to their routine. William, too, was cleaning every corner of the market as always. A young schoolboy approached William on his way to school. The child looked at William with curious eyes. "Grandpa, why are you out here again? Aren't you scared?" The boy's innocent question made William smile. He put his broom aside for a moment and crouched down to meet the child's eye level. "What's there to be scared of? Someone has to look after these streets, right?" The boy tilted his head, trying to understand William's words, but soon ran off, worried about being late for school. William watched the boy's retreating figure with a warm smile. By the afternoon, the market was bustling. William was taking a break on a bench near the market entrance, with his recycling cart beside him. In the distance, a sleek black car slowly passed by. Inside was David Kim, who had knelt before Michael Johnson the previous day. Upon spotting Michael, David paused the car momentarily and bowed his head in a gesture of respect. Michael simply nodded in acknowledgement, maintaining his calm demeanor. As the sun began to set, Michael started organizing his cart of recyclables. It was the time of day when he wrapped up his work. He began to slowly pull his cart out of the market. The camera panned back, capturing Michael's entire figure, revealing a worn piece of paper attached to the back of the cart. It read, "Legends don't speak, they simply remain." Michael continued his slow walk down the alley of the market, the setting sun casting long shadows. He quietly walked his path, unnoticed by most, yet always working for the benefit of everyone. Sometimes, legends are the ordinary people beside us. Isn't that the true meaning of strength? M.